One of the biggest concerns for the New York Mets going into the 2025 season is the starting rotation. In this video, we will take a look at 3 starting pitching arms and their markets for the Mets to explore this offseason. All right, Mets fans, welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. It's your boy CP. The Mets offseason is rolling on, and we are hearing a plethora of rumors surrounding the New York Mets and multiple pitching candidates on the starting front, whether it's via trade, whether it's via free agency. And in this video, we are going to talk about 3 names that we really haven't discussed on this channel as of yet. No, it's not Corbin Burnes, and no, it is not Garrett Crochet. If you missed my Garrett Crochet potential mock trade video, I'm going to link that in the description down below. It was posted yesterday. If you are viewing this and if you missed it, make sure you go check that out. But again, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more Mets offseason content. If you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications buttons for future polls, streams, and videos all off season long. And please do comment your thoughts and opinions about this video down below. Okay, let's get into it. The first 2 names that I wanted to talk about are external free agent candidates by the names of Max Fried and Walker Buehler. First, I'll get into Max Fried, which is a name that I like a lot, and you will see in the next slide why that is and the sort of outlook that I have for the Mets this offseason with his name included in it. But there's a lot of speculation in terms of if Max Fried is actually going to stay on the East Coast versus going out to the West Coast and joining a rotation like the Dodgers, who he has ties with in terms of being from the actual West Coast. So, I think that he is more likely to leave the Atlanta Braves organization. And I think that if the Braves were actually serious about retaining him, it would have already been done. And so the fact that it isn't, the fact that he's in his prime of his career, the fact that he's been a top 7 pitcher consistently in Major League Baseball, maybe outside of the 2023 season where he missed about 3 or 4 months, indicates to me a lot that he is getting prepared to leave that Braves organization. And as Mets fans, we have seen Max Fried a lot. We've had our fair share of failures against Max Fried, and we've also had our fair share of successes. And, there are some common trends that you do see from Max Fried as a starter in this league as he gets older and older. The walk rate for me is the biggest concern, as we've seen in the last 3 seasons going up for Max Fried. But even given that, he has enjoyed a lot of success, particularly this past season in 2024, where he pitched 174 and a third innings pitched, 3.25 in the ERA category, 8.6 strikeouts per 9. He knows how to put hitters away, and 1.16 in the whip category, walks and hits per innings pitched. Now, Max Fried, again, gives you that versatile look with the fastball, about 94 miles per hour, heavy on the curveball as well, which is his best secondary pitch, and also finds a lot of success with his changeup. And his market down below, you see below his name, 6 years, $136.3 million. I think you can also try to get him in the door with a 5-year contract, but right here with Spotrac's valuation, which you see in red, is just over $22 million per year over those 6 years that the algorithm has spit out, which with a player of his caliber, given his age being 30 going on 31 years old, given his track record in this league since 2017 when he first appeared for the Braves, I really do think that this is a fair market value for him. And it is very similar to the likes of, in terms of the length of the contract, to your, Corbin Burnes, your Blake Snells of the world. But where you kind of get into a different conversation is with this next name that intrigues me a lot and is a complete polar opposite situation with Walker Buehler, with how much time that he's missed over the last couple of seasons with a plethora of injuries. Earlier on in his career, when he was at the top of his game, he had some rib issues. Recently, the elbow has been bothering him. It's a whole slew of things with Walker Buehler that has kept him out for the most part. He did not appear in any games in the year 2022, 2023. He had a lot of his season also just taken away from him with that elbow injury. And this is a guy that has a lot left to prove. And we saw that in 2024 in the regular season with just a pretty down year. It was a pretty rough going for Walker Buehler. But in contrast, when the playoffs rolled around, when the Dodgers got to face the Padres, the Mets, and inevitably the Yankees in the World Series, Walker Buehler helped that team secure a championship, and he did it in a major way. He had tremendous playoff production, and he really showcased his talent and his ability, even given the injury history that he has, for any teams that will be vying for his services in the offseason. But you see here the regular season campaign for him: 75 and a third innings pitched in 2024, 5.58 ERA, which is not good, 7.6 strikeouts per nine. The strikeouts have slowly been decreasing for Walker Buehler as well. I do think he has good strikeout potential, but we just have not seen it in the past couple of seasons. And a 1.55 walks and hits per innings pitched in the WHIP category. Now you see here the market valuation from Spotrac. Actually, that text in red below Walker Buehler is actually not even from Spotrac. Spotrac has Walker Buehler valued at 1 year, $3.9 million in his next contract, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. There is no way, even given the injury history, the uncertainty surrounding Walker Buehler, that he is only taking just about $4 million to sign with whichever team he decides to go with this offseason, whether it be the Mets or the Dodgers or anybody else. When you take a look at a potential Walker Buehler signing, it's going to be short term, and it's going to be mimicking sort of that prove-it-year deal that Luis Severino got from the New York Mets this past offseason at 1 year, $13 million. I know Walker Buehler has been inconsistent. He has been unavailable for the most part, but the electricity that he has surrounding his fastball, 95 to 96, he uses that cutter as well as his secondary pitch, and also does have a knuckle curveball and a curveball, or a changeup, I should say, to go along with that in his vast arsenal. He has the tools in order to get back on track to the 2018-2019 version of Walker Buehler that we've seen. But valuing him at $4 million is just absolutely simply ridiculous. And honestly, him being 30 years old, also in the prime of his career, probably needing a prove-it-year deal, I would also be willing to up the price point that I give out for Walker Buehler, not in terms of the AAV, right? Because I do have him valued at just around $10.5 million, a lot more respectable than what Spotrac's algorithm has put out there for him. But in terms of mimicking a potential Sean Manaea type contract that we saw the Mets give him, in terms of that security blanket, while also on a prove-it-year deal, it was a 2-year deal, but after the first year, obviously the player option that Sean Manaea just declined, I would be willing to give Walker Buehler that type of security if he chooses to come on over to Queens in a potential contract negotiation there with David Stearns. Because again, I do think that this guy is not going to be the 1 or 2 that everyone thought he was going to be in the first couple of years of his career. But given the holes, quite simple, in this rotation, and the Mets needing to fill spots, they can do so at a cheap price point for Walker Buehler, maybe your starting pitcher 3 or 4, while also going after one of those co-aces that we've been talking about in Corbin Burnes or Garrett Crochet, and that flexibility financially is still there to achieve both. But let's talk about a familiar name that we just actually mentioned here within this past 30 seconds, and that is Sean Manaea. Have you forgotten about Sean Manaea yet, Mets fans? Yes, he is still available on the market. He did opt out of his player option. He was also extended a qualifying offer worth just over $21 million for 1 year by the New York Mets, to which everyone believes he is going to turn down. And he absolutely should, because you see the production from 2023 while he was a San Francisco Giant into the year 2024 that he just had with the New York Mets, and the type of success that he found on that prove-it-year deal. The most innings pitched that he's thrown since 2021. One day I'll be able to make a video without any typos. Sean Manaea threw 117.2 innings in 2023, not 1,172. Okay, now back to the video. 2021 in an Oakland Athletics uniform, a 3.47 ERA. Yes, the strikeouts per nine rate went down, but that is a given with the amount of innings that he threw from season to season here. As you see on your screen, the more innings you throw, obviously that strikeout per nine rate is going to go down, and the whip was fantastic at just over 1.05. Around that 1.08 range. Obviously, that's rounded up or down, given what that third decimal value is going to be. But Sean Manaea's contract valuation per Spotrac and per multiple beat reporters is kind of interesting because there is some discrepancy there between the different reports. Spotrac's algorithm, if you want to consider it a good valuation or not for the services of Sean Manaea, let's not forget that he opted out of a $13.5 million player option. This right here, 4 years for $64 million, is $16 million AAV for Sean Manaea. A guy like Jon Heyman, who obviously is a beat reporter that you all know, I know, we said his name on this podcast multiple times as we go through the offseason, both last offseason and this offseason, because he is a pretty good friend of Scott Boras, who just happens to represent Sean Manaea in this case right now. Jon Heyman is predicting a little bit of a higher AAV, shocker for Sean Manaea, at 4 years, $72 million, right around what Taijuan Walker got from the Philadelphia Phillies, which is about $18 million per year. And honestly, I'm kind of tending to agree with Jon Heyman in this scenario. And I would even take it a step further with what you see on the right-handed side of your screen in terms of my wish list, CP's dream big wish list for the New York Mets this offseason, because I really do think that Sean Manaea can get upwards of $20 million per year. And if Spotrac is saying 4 for 64, Jon Heyman is saying 4 for 72, I'm going to say 4 for 80 with an even $20 million per year. That's the type of market I see, with other teams being interested alongside the Mets, being the Orioles, the Yankees, and even the Texas Rangers in terms of some reports that I've heard around the league. But here's my dream big wish list, right? And obviously, I mentioned this in one of my streams within this past week. I didn't really expand on it too much. And this is some of the time that I'll take to kind of expand on it. And some of the numbers have been adjusted here in terms of what my valuation is per AAV for some of these names that you see on your screen and what they will add to the 2025 payroll. Again, these aren't overall contract valuations. Obviously, this is AAV and what would be added onto the $151 million that the New York Mets are currently starting out with in this 2025 season if everything remained consistent as of today. Re-signing Pete Alonso, Sean Manaea, and Ryan Stanek is what I would prioritize if I am David Stearns and the New York Mets. For those three guys, you'd probably add about $50.5 million collectively between those three names. Ryan Stanek is going to get anywhere between $2 to $2.5 million for a single year. If the Mets bring him back, I think that is his market, and I think that is a fair price point. We obviously just talked about Sean Manaea. I took the higher route in terms of the $20 million AAV, and Pete Alonso. I really do think at the end of the day, whether you agree or not, whether you want Pete Alonso in a Mets uniform or not, he is going to topple the first base market in terms of AAV, being the highest paid first baseman in the league when Scott Boras gets him his next contract, and that's going to be about $28 million. So that is what that 50.5 is comprised of. Signing these three external free agents is also what I would prioritize. Max Fried, who I just went over, his market values between $22 to $23 million. Former teammate in the Braves organization. It still remains to be seen if they're going to retain the services of AJ Minter. I would be all in on an AJ Minter signing. He's a dynamic electric lefty out of the pen. He has closing experience. And he's not going to be as costly as a lefty arm on this market like Tanner Scott. So I would predict anywhere between $5 to $7 million for AJ Minter. And I think the perfect price point for Juan Soto, and again, we'll talk about Juan Soto in one of our next standalone videos on this channel, $48 million is my sweet spot until further notice AAV for Juan Soto. So that's where you get your nice $78 million price point that you'd add on to the payroll. And then you trade for, because I mentioned this again, I will link the center field trade video that I dropped on my channel. Lane Thomas would be a perfect filler for 1 year, maybe a stopgap center fielder that has a pretty decent bat and really good defense in terms of the range that he provides out there in the outfield. As you make your way and transition over to Drew Gilbert, obviously Lane Thomas is valued at around $7.8 million. I don't quite know if the Guardians are going to hand out, I believe he's in arbitration if I'm not mistaken, so they have to tender him a contract. I'm not sure if the Guardians, if there's any news surrounding that, but if he is on the trade block, and the Guardians do put him and, make him available, I would certainly be interested in the Mets sort of pursuing Lane Thomas. And obviously Devin Williams, who we all know gave up that go-ahead bomb to Pete Alonso in Game 3 of the Wild Card Series. He has an electric changeup. I really do think if he gets into the doors of the New York Mets organization, obviously has familiarity with David Stearns, he is also and can be a great piece in the back end of the bullpen, in addition to guys like Ryan Stanek, AJ Minter, and obviously Edwin Diaz and Reed Garrett, who are already part of the New York Mets. All of this that you see on the right-hand side of your screen, all of these names would equate to about $144.7 million added on in this offseason to that $151 million mark, which would put the Mets around $297 million going into the 2025 season. And with that couple extra $1 million to get up to $300 million, you could also think about bringing back Jose Iglesias on a 1-year deal worth $1 to $2 million, whatever his market's going to be, because we obviously know that he is now represented by Scott Boras as well. But let me know what you think about this video. What do you think about Fried, Buehler, Manaea, and their markets? And what do you think about my dream big wish list? Again, there's so many different avenues for the Mets to go down this offseason. It's going to be a fun one. And I got you all covered on this channel. I appreciate it. Make sure you smash those thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and comment your opinions down below. It's your boy CP. Let's go Mets. Peace out.
Thank you for watching the True Mets Talk podcast. Make sure you're tapping on that notifications button and checking out all the latest content on the channel. Thank you.